Un lugar in between is a space for anyone who has ever felt in between places, cultures, or identities. I am Andrea, your host. In each episode, I talk with migrants, refugees, and people on the move about how change shapes us and how we build belonging along the way. This is a space to reflect, to be seen, and to build a more inclusive world. Welcome to a new episode of Un Lugar in Between. Today I have the opportunity to speak with someone whose story is about courage, resilience, and action, Motaz Amer. Motaz is an award-winning campaigner and independent researcher. His work focuses on migration, refugee rights, and social justice. And he, at just 9 years old, he was forced to flee Yemen, and that experience will later shape his path as a speaker, youth advocate, and policy advisor. Welcome, Motos. I'm very happy to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me here. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, as I always do before we get into your story, I like to start from more a personal place. You have the opportunity to introduce yourself without using your job title or labels. So if you have that opportunity, where will you start? You might consider sharing your beliefs, your purpose, what you love, or what you are passionate about it.
I love that. I love the idea. Don't using the title because we usually got really stuck into the titles. But yeah, my name is Motaz Amer, and I think if I just describe my day-to-day work, it would be to enable and empower other people and call people to stand for that what they believe in, especially when we're talking about social justice and how we can make sure that we're not just striving and to better life for ourselves, but for the people around us and the communities as well, and how we can give back to the community and support the community. Because at the end of the day, we need to support each other. I think honestly to make the world a better place. So yeah, I would say empowering people and enabling people and just walking and talking with people because I think it's important. It's important to have such a discussions like the ones you have in the podcast and sharing ideas and trying to share that encouragement and inspiration as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a powerful way to describe yourself, and I agree for like what I know from you. I agree with everything that you just say. So talking now more about your personal story as a migrant and when you arrived to the UK, you were only 9 years old when you had to leave Yemen. So what do you remember from
Mhm.
that moment? And for those who may not be familiar about Yemen, could you share a bit of context of what was happening in Yemen at that moment and what the situation looks like today?
Mhm. I think it's important to start to answer a very important question, which is where's Yemen? So Yemen is a country in the Middle East, besides Saudi Arabia and Oman, and before all the events that had happened in Yemen, Yemen was really big tourism destination. So we used to have people from all over the world. My mom's neighbors were Chinese, Indian, Pakistanis. We had Spanish, we had English, we had people from all over the world coming there, some to work and others to live there. So it was really diverse place, and even now the culture of Yemen is really have a flavor of different communities and cultures. So whenever I hang out with my friends from, for example, from Pakistan, we always argue about the food and the drinks that we have and which one is the original and which one is the copy. But honestly, I think we have a lot in common with different communities and it was the same when my group, my other group from here, some of their grandparents had been to Yemen and teaching English there. So Yemen was really diverse place and culture rich. But unfortunately, after the Arab Spring, the whole protest around the violent dictatorship and regimes in Yemen, not in Yemen in particular, but across the Arab countries, and Yemen was one of them. Things were unstable after 2010, and it was just getting unfortunately worse and worse year after year, where we had been hopeful that at least it would be like it would be just a matter of a year, 2 years, 3 years, but it's been getting worse. But the peak point was 2014 and 2015. That's when the conflict started, and the whole militias and groups start spread and fight and trying to take over the country when the president was killed. So that was when really the situation in Yemen was getting really bad, really bad. And we unfortunately we needed to leave, and honestly, it was such a difficult decision at the time. I was kid, but it was such a difficult decision for my parents to make. I mean, leaving a place where they used to live there, we used to live there, leaving my school, leaving my friends, leaving the rest of our family. I mean, sadly, as many other refugees and migrants, we still have family back home, even though they're living in poor conditions. So it was a difficult decision. But if my parents didn't feel safe in the streets that they grew up in, how could their children do?
Yeah.
So we needed to flee. We took a really difficult journey. The next day, in the early morning before the sunrise, we left home with nothing apart than our documents, and the clothes that we had on, and we took a journey. The streets were quiet. There was no one out there, especially in the morning. People try to avoid because of the certain areas has snipers in it. It was really dangerous, and we were really scared until we reached the border between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. It took around, I think, 2 days traveling through the bus
Wow.
to get there, but we got there eventually. Taking this is my mom, my dad, and me, which is at the time 9, and I've got my brother who's 2 years younger than me, so he was 7 at the time. We reached the border between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and we needed to stay there for around, I think, 6 to 7 days until we get our documents processed. If you don't have an idea what is the border looks like, it's basically a desert, and there's just camps all over the place. But yeah, it's nothing about than a desert, and I mean, thankfully, there's human rights organizations such as the Crescent, the Red Crescent, and different organizations that provide food and drinks and all of that to the people sitting at the border. It took 6 to 7 days until we get our paper processed. We were really sick because of the environment, and we were really tired. It's been a journey. If you add the 2 other days, it was around 10 days journey until we have reached to Saudi Arabia, to Riyadh, where my dad had his friends there, and they hosted us. We stayed in Saudi Arabia for around 4 to 5 years, and after that, my dad unfortunately lost his job, and he couldn't find another job. We needed to leave because we couldn't secure. It was getting more expensive and expensive day after day, and if we don't have a stable income, it's really difficult to live in Saudi Arabia. We needed to leave. We left to Egypt with the promise that one of my dad's friends will have us to secure a visa to Greece. So we stayed in Egypt for around 8 months. We had secured a visa to tourism visa to Greece. We went to Greece and saw asylum there, where I think it's a kind of well known that Greece is most of a station to the people, because Greece and the Greek government does not provide any support, and the whole asylum process itself is hosted and kind of supported by the IOM, which is the International Migration Organization, one of the UN sections. So we stayed in Greece, and again we were lucky that the application were faster than it used to be. People used to wait until they used to wait for like around 5 years, 6 years, 7 years until they get their papers and documents so that they can leave Greece. But because the situation in Ukraine, the European Union have funded Greece to make the application faster and faster, and to start to take the necessary actions to to be ready to host the Ukrainian refugees that would leave after the conflict, after the war started in Ukraine. So it was around 2 years that we had our document. It wasn't too bad. We left Greece to go and seek asylum in Northern Ireland. So because my dad had friends there, and I mean honestly, having friends or family members in a certain country, it makes just life easier
Yeah,
because
they can
rather
tell
than
you.
going without,
Yeah, they
yeah,
can tell you a bit about the
exactly,
process.
because you
It's still difficult, but yeah, I suppose they can tell you more details.
yeah, and I mean, you just find someone that can speak your language, can teach you around, tells you that if you want this, you go to this job, you go to the Tesco's, etc., etc. So it is much easier to have those people to support you that are already there. So I think that that's one of the lucky things that we had as well, because a lot of people do not have those people. A lot of people just do, and the journeys alone, and they suffer. I mean,
Yeah.
great pain, honestly. So yeah, so we arrived here, and we've been in Northern Ireland since then, and recently just moved to Glasgow to study at university.
I am very interested about when everything happened. You were at very young age, so when this all this journey
Hmm.
started. So how that influence in who you are today, or like if you were aware about what was happening at that moment, like fully aware as a kid.
I think, from perspective of a child, you do have you're too young to understand the whole depth of
Yeah,
the journey itself, but you can definitely resonate. You can definitely have pictures and moments that will resonate with you, and I think have a lot of the snaps from the journey, I would say, that really stayed with me, and I can remember it clearly. Rather that was the borders, or that was getting to school in a different country, all of that can't combine together, I think it really shapes who am I today. So that's why I don't really feel kind of sad because of those experiences. Definitely, it's not something that I would wish anyone to experience, but I think it's really something that shaped who I am today. So I think if I had the chance to change it, I wouldn't do, because he kind of nature the feeling and the sense of justice that I have today, and the sense of identity as well. I think identity, and the ability to adopt different environments did really be nurtured from really young age in me, in terms of being flexible, because I mean, moving from a different country to another a few times, it really helps with that. And I think a lot of people that knows me, they know that I'm quite flexible in terms of the environment and changing environments and trying to get outside of my comfort zone. Because unfortunately, it wasn't something that I had choice to, as a young age, when I was at a young age. But I think war does play, like, rural migration, being a migrant plays a big role in people's life. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it's a part of our identity, but it's not the whole identity. I think that's important because people start to grow around this phrase, or this experience. But honestly, it's something you grow beside, around.
yeah, yeah. I think this is very important, as you say, to remember. Yeah, it's a big part of our identity, being migrant or refugee. Also, like how can we identify like another parts like from that experience, but from all our life and all our self. So yeah, I think it's very powerful, all your story, and very inspiring, like all your experience through that. I would like to ask you as well, what does the word refugee means to you, and how has the meaning of this word changed for you since you first left the country?
Refugee, I think it's a word that usually get really misrepresented in the media. But I think being a refugee or refugee itself as a word, it means it means someone that did have something to call, did have quote unquote life, home, and lost it because of rather violations of human rights, persecutions, conflict, war, humanitarian crisis, climate change crisis. We've seen it. People become refugees for different reasons. But what is common between all those reasons, all those people from all those countries, is that they did have something, but they lost it. Rather, that was a home or life. I mean, m- people presume that someone want to be a refugee, but honestly, it's not something you chose. It's something that just happens, and people don't just think about, oh yeah, I want just to become a refugee and leave the country and this and that. I mean, you have a family, you have a home, you have a family, you have a house, you have a life, school, social, an economic life in your country. Why would you leave it unless you really need to leave in it? Because of fearing of the fearing of you losing your life, or the fearing of hurting the people around you. We see that in a lot of cases, people leave the country because they get in trouble because of political issues, and they need to leave because they don't want to harm the people around them. They were family. I think when I was young, I didn't really understand what the word refugee meant. I think as a lot of people, I thought that being a refugee means being a migrant. It means just moving to a country because you fancy moving to a country. It's more like a long-term tourism. But I grow more older and older, but as well as I get more involved in the sector, I start just to realize the difference, the privilege that each one have over the other. One moves because they just want to improve their economic life, but others does not have choice back their home. They need to move because they live in a poor town. They can't work. They can't do anything there. They can't secure a good future or good life to their families and themselves. So they become a migrant and they go to seek employment, they go to seek opportunities. There's other people that they have uh, reasons outside of their hands again, but as well, they don't have the chance as the people that identify as a migrant. They don't have the chance of staying home because they need to leave. It's rather you leave home or you leave life, which is something I always say. So they become a refugees, they become people seeking asylum, seeking safety, sanctuary, as we describe those populations. And there is just a regular day-to-day tourism, which is someone just goes to a country, fancy living there, and saying, "Oh yeah, I love living in, for example, let's say uh, France or China or Spain or wherever, and you love the community there, and you just live there." It's different, and it's important to acknowledge there's a difference between refugee, someone seeking asylum, a migrant, an immigrant, or just a tourist.
Yeah, you are definitely right about all of this, and I think it's good like make the difference between all of these terms, and of course not like taking like as a label for people because that's not the idea, but just more like to raise awareness about what the different issues around the world are making for or forcing people to leave their countries and or become a refugee. So I would like to ask you, what is home for you right now? Because you have been in different countries and in between these different places, cultures, and identities. So what means home for you right now? What has been the most difficult part of building a home away from your country of origin?
I mean, I'm grateful for all the countries that we've been into. We had, yes, it was difficult, we had hardship and all of that, but we had sweet moments as well. We had some good things, bad things, as life generally. But I think each country that we've been to and each experience, whether was good or bad, did really impact the sense of identity that we have and the way we're looking what homes mean. I think I just realized that recently when I moved from Belfast to Glasgow because I had it was moving because of a choice, so didn't leave because of necessity, and as well I had the chance to return to Belfast to visit it So that was the only time that we left the country because we wanted to leave, but as well we wanted we had the chance to go back to the country. That was a definite experience because we left the place, we moved to another city, but when we came back to the city, it looks familiar. You feel like like you never left actually. So that was a really warming feeling, I would say. That oh my God, they know the streets, I know the place, I know the people. It's not the first time here, but it feels like home. But Glasgow feels like home now as well. So I think home just became the place that you have rather family or friends, but you have a memory in. So I think the memories that we have in different countries, cities, can build and shape the sense of home that we have. So I think home for me became just wherever my family, wherever my friends are, and wherever I feel like I belong, I feel like I can thrive, I feel empowered. I think that's home to me. It's a place where you feel safety, not just security, but safety, and you're not just there, uh, but you're there and you're heard and you're seen, I would say. So yeah, I think that's home. It's not a house, it's not a country, it's more of a feeling.
And what was the hardest part of building a home?
I would say it's always if it was a country that doesn't speak a language, it's always the language, it's always the culture. It's always just getting around the place, getting familiar with the streets. I like walking. I walk a lot. I hike a lot. So I like to be familiar with the streets, how to walk them, how to get the bus, how to get to Tesco's. I think all of that overall shapes how comfortable you feel around the place and how familiar you feel around the place. So, the most difficult part, it's familiarity because it takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes time to be familiar with the people's faces in the streets. It takes time to be familiar with the shops. It takes time to be familiar with the system in terms of that was the education system or system and all of those systems around us. So I think familiarity is really the key for what we describe integration or feeling like you belong to a place is how familiar you are with, how familiar with the culture, with the history, with the place itself. And the more familiar you are, the more kind of belonging feeling you feel to the society or to the certain community we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand. And sometimes people don't think in these little things. Like people sometimes think like in more, I don't know, huge things, but there isn't this familiarity and these little things that it could make a difference if you feel that you belong or not to a place. And now I would like to talk more about your experience as an activist and in campaigning, because I know you have a lot of experience in the migration and refugee sector. So first, I would like to ask, when did you realize your story could be a tool for change? Could be a tool for inspiring people through your own story?
We always take for granted the experiences and the stories that we have because for us it looks like, I mean, it's my story, it's my experience. For example, if you always lived in the countryside, that's normal for you, but for people that is living in the big cities, it's something interesting, it's something inspiring, it's something that can be learned from and it can be heard. You might not value it as much as other. So I think it's important to acknowledge that first. And when I first arrived in Northern Ireland, and I was part of a youth program run by a charity, whenever people were just asking me, about like my story and things like that, and I think it's always important to try to reach out to people to ask them questions again. I think questions can open doors, and I think conversations can really change a lot. So I was encouraged to go with to have a good faith discussion and just a conversation with someone and just asking them, don't feel too shy, don't feel too offensive. I mean, no one takes it offense as long as you're giving it with a good intention. Like no one's getting offensive at all. So people were out was asking me, I was just describing it like it was nothing. I was just describing the 10 years of my life, like, yeah, we went there and here and there, and that's how we came here. So it take like 5 minutes of explanation, but people were always amazed. People always ask follow-up questions. People always say, "Oh my God," and never heard about something like this. I never learned about people doing that, and didn't know about certain countries, certain cultures. So I think it's always important to ask those questions. As I more and more told my story, I felt the value that it had. For me, it means something is important to me, but I didn't always thought that would be something that is important to people and would be something that is worth to be shared. Since then, I just use my story not just for my own benefit, but to again to advocate for people that had similar experiences, to people that have their stories, but they can't tell them stories because they don't have the same privilege that we have. As that was the platform, the capacity, the way to articulate it, the language to
Yeah.
do so. So I felt not just responsibility to share the story because I just wanted to share it, but I felt the responsibility to share it so that people can learn about those community, can feel the suffering of those communities, and can be more compassionate, more understandable, more sympathize with those people because now they can understand how they feel, metaphorically speaking. So that's why since then, just more and more getting bigger and bigger platforms. Rather, I was doing just public speaking and sharing my story in front of people in a room or with newspapers because I think it's important to people to hear the all angled stories and hear from different perspectives. Because as you know, the UK media and the Western media is not doing a great job in terms of portraying people and polarizing them one aspect of their life, but they're more than that. We are people that have life, that we have depth and knowledge and experiences that shaped who we are today. And coming from someone who's studying engineering, that's the most difficult part that artificial intelligence cannot compete with us. It's the decisions we take. It's not something of a one moment. It's spelled on and on and on, and people should recognize that and should recognize that we're standing here today because all the days and hours and minutes and seconds that we have spent in different experiences, either it was good or bad, it does play a big part.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's quite important that, like, well, we talk about this before when we introduce each other about like the power of the stories. I feel like it's in two ways. Like first, as you mentioned, like for raising awareness and shaping the narrative around migration and refugees in media and in the like in the public audience. But also, I think the power of like people that they are not able to speak about their own stories because they are going through that and they don't have the ability yet to
Hmm.
talk about it. I think it's so important when you can hear a story that you can feel identify by then, like, and you can feel like, oh, this is someone is putting the name of feelings. This is one of the reasons I had the idea of this podcast, because I think there is a power in when people like identify and someone is putting the name of something that I am feeling, and I was thinking I was alone, and is and we are not alone. They are not alone. I also want to ask you about your experience collaborating with different organizations, because I know you have a lot of experience with this. In your view, what still needs to change in how we design systems for displaced people? You mentioned already the media, for example, but if you have other highlights that you can share with us?
Thanks very much, and thank you for your thoughts and reflections. I think working in the sector for the past few years, it's really been a privilege working with incredible people, incredible organizations, and incredible individuals. But as well as more as you get deeper and deeper into the sector, you just realize that the issues is really simple, and but the solutions are not implemented right or not implemented at all. First, I think we need to focus on how we can include those people again, how we can make them, how we can empower them, how we can enable them, and how we can make them feel heard and seen, which is important thing, which is important element because we can't have a conversation about the people without having the people. So it's important to have those people in the rooms itself, the rooms where systems that are designed, where decisions are made, and where discussions are began. So it's important to have those people there and not just to be as an observers, but to be contributors to the discussion and to have the power to change the overall discussion. One of the most privileged roles I have is being New Scots advisor. For the people not familiar with, New Scots is the name of the National Refugee Integration Strategy in Scotland, and so we are working with stakeholders like the Scottish government, local councils, and the Scottish Refugee Council to work together with people that have lived experience, like myself and others, being serving as advisors. So we go to the communities, we get the inputs from the communities, what they feel, what they struggle with, what they want to see in the next 5 years, and after that we go and we inform those decisions and we have those discussions with the people that have the power to do them, whether with local councils, charities, or the government itself here in Scotland. And I think it's important to do that. It's important to do that because if we're not including the people, there's no point. Because at the end of the day, we can just design something that we think is perfect, but for the people down at the ground, for the people that use the service, it's not perfect. It's really bad and it's really awful, and it makes it's a nightmare. So it's important to have those people because I think designing something and after that redesigning it is more difficult
Yeah, it is.
than asking before establishing the service. Uh, it's just it's no brainer. That's why I say it's simple because it's no brainer. It's better for resources. There was money and time and effort, and it's more effective. And the second point, which is the media again, the way we're talking about people, the way we share the stories of those people, not to polarize them, not to frame them in a certain way, to be accurate. I'm not saying everyone should say that we are pro migration, we're pro refugees, but I say be accurate. Do share the right stories, do use the right terminology because a lot of people just polarize. We see the Daily Mail, the Sun, which is the far right newspapers in the UK. We see them portray migration to just a certain community. You see, you can find a couple of two bad people, a couple of bad people, and you can say this is the whole migration. But I
Yeah,
can't do the same. I mean, good and bad is in all communities in all countries, and I mean if I've just met one bad Chinese person from China, that does not mean all the Chinese people are bad. And it's the
yeah,
same. If you met one migrant, that does not mean all migrants are bad. And again, it's important to have the real stories, the real experiences, rather than trying. Oh yeah, we just ask people what they think about migration, but we never ask the migrant what they think about
yeah,
migration. And because it's the people themselves that knows it from bottom up, and it's the people themselves that can show us something that we can't before have seen. I think I'm just finishing the point that the one thing that we have in the scientific community, which is there's two ways to understand something. It's rather to do it or to hear it. So if you not have, if you don't have an experience of migration, at least hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is, yeah, it's very very good advice. That final point, I think so. I agree with everything what you mentioned, and you put in place about, yeah, what our systems needs to change in terms to support more displaced people. And also I really admire your work and the work that you have been doing during these years. So we are going close to the final part of the episode, and I have a few more questions to you. So the first one is, if
Mhm.
you could speak to that version of you at 9 years old, what will you say?
I would just say, keep it up, keep the wonderful work, don't give up. Your head, your scene, your points are important, your story is important, and one day there will be not just one person, but a lot of people that want to listen to it and will feel empowered because of it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's a very nice message. And the final question, I always finish the episode asking or inviting the guests to ask the audience to ask a question to themselves after hearing your story. So what is, like, because I believe in the power of the right questions. So what it could be, that question you want the people ask to themselves after hearing your story.
I think one question that comes to mind is, what other incredible stories are within our communities, but we never ask the right questions and we never given the right platform to hear. So it's important to ask this question to yourself, to try to find those stories, to try to find those people, and ask a simple question of just, what is your story? Why, for example, as I said earlier on, have a good faith conversation. What's your story? What's the story of I use ours to say when I go to traditional events where people wear tradition culture clothes or accessories and food and things. I always ask about it. I go, oh, that's a beautiful necklace. What does it come from? What does that mean to you? That's a beautiful dress. What's the story behind it? The food is great. What's the story behind it? I was ask myself, how can I hear those stories? Because I think it really not just change me, but it empowers other people. It gives it's the same feeling that I had and I felt when people ask me, what is your story? And can you share it with us? And I think you should feel this incredible feeling and you should give it to other people as well. So what other stories are within our communities but we never heard about? Ask your question there. Ask yourself this question and try to find those stories and be curious and uh and kind. And I think that's the two important
Yeah.
things.
Oh, thank you. It's a very very good question to ask ourselves. And thank you so much for sharing your story today, and for sharing all your incredible work. Again, I really admire what you are doing, and I feel very inspired by your work. And I hope, like everyone who is listening today, it could also feel inspired and recharged after this conversation. And thank you to everyone listening. And if in this episode resonated with you, please share it with us. And yeah, thank you so much, Motaz.